Those are the best, right? How many times did we have to do Head in the Cloud, Heart in the Community before we got it right?
It's so crazy.
All right, there we go. Hi, everybody, and welcome at episode 2 of Head in the Cloud, Heart in the Community. I'm very happy to have you again here today to watch our show, which is very excited again because I'm not here alone. I'm together with Holly, who's based in the United States. And Holly, please say hello and introduce our guest of today.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's session. Again, it's session number 2. We're so excited to have you. If you want, you can follow us on Twitter. You can find me at Lehman__Holly. I would love to connect with everybody. That's the idea that we have for this podcast, is to highlight all the positive things that are happening in our community in tech. And today I am very excited to have one of my dear friends, Miri Rodriguez, joining us today. Thank you so much. She is not only an amazing wife and mother, she is running our Global Internship program for Microsoft, and best thing, she is now an author. So we're here today to talk all things about Miri, her book, positive things for working from home. So Miri, it's all about you today. So tell me something. First of all, I'd love for you to give us a quick intro of yourself, because I can't possibly start, but I will say I want to dig into a few things. So after you intro, I've got some questions for you.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, both of you. It's so exciting. I know when you reached out to me to do this, I love the idea of you highlighting positivity in this world that right now is so uncertain. And you're both so positive people that I love to connect with, because you always bring this art of inspiration, and so you inspire me both, and I'm excited to be part of this and borrow from your community, so thank you. A little bit about myself. So I'm from Venezuela. I was born and raised there until I was 13. Then I came as an immigrant to the States. I landed in Miami, and just started my life here. Got married young, around 20. So my husband and I will be actually celebrating 22 years this October.
Congratulations!
So I have 2 boys, 16 and 18, and an American Bulldog who's 8. And it's just been a fun ride. It's been really incredible to see my life just kind of evolve into so many things I never expected that it would. And I think one of the best things I can say about my journey is that I just never gave up, right? So a lot of things have happened in between, and I think that's a common theme today for everyone, that we just don't give up. Don't give up, even when the journey's hard, when it's inconsistent, when things don't come out the way that we want to. Something good is always at the end. So it's been a great journey, and it's been definitely hasn't come without its challenges, but I welcome it all.
Okay, so let's talk about this. You keep saying journey. Now, I know, Miri, that you have recently gone on a journey from Seattle all the way to Florida to take care of your sweet mom during COVID. And I think that there's so much positive to talk about with that. So first of all, tell me about how fun it was to do a road trip with your family during this craziness of COVID. And then I want you to start we're here to talk tech and talk community, and we're all trying to find ways of working from home and making it positive. So tell us about your journey to Florida. Tell us about some of the tips and tricks that you found to keep positive and keep being successful as we think about this new work from home life.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it was something that we had to do as a family. My mom is here in Florida. We're based in Seattle. So I was just like, hey, there's so much stuff going on. We need to just go. How are we going to go? Can we go? And so I was like, let's just turn this into a road trip. Let's just turn this into like a family thing and take 3 weeks and just go out there and do this.
That's awesome.
And it was really insane because, as we were literally going state by state, things were not open yet, or were starting to open. We were literally sometimes like the one customer in the hotel room, or the first customer that opened when the restaurant came. There were news people coming out and asking us, how it felt to sit down at a restaurant for the first time in 3 months. So it was really a bizarre experience, but a joyful experience for us. It was truly a moment where we decided we're not going to be confined in a moment where mentally we are confined. Let's just take that away from ourselves. Let's give ourselves an opportunity and enjoy the moment, enjoy the ride, with the mission of obviously getting to my mom. So it was truly an experience, a good experience, and it was an adventure. It was something that we enjoyed very much. It took 3 weeks, and then we went through 5 states, and then we actually flew in from Texas into Florida.
Well, you sent me a picture of my hometown, Las Vegas, and it was a ghost town. I was just so taken back because all I know of Vegas is the hustle and bustle of it all. So it sounds like you had an amazing trip. And now let's think about work, right? So tell us some of the positive things that you're doing to make work from home successful and positive for you and your family.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I learned quickly, so I used to be a remote employee for Microsoft for 3 years. And remote is not COVID remote, right? It's a complete different experience. I read somewhere that it's you not working remote is you working at home or bringing home work or something. It's like it's a complete different thing. So I think that
I believe it's not working from home, but living at work.
Living at work. That's it. Exactly, Easy. That's right. So I'm like, that's real. It feels like we're living at work and work doesn't go away. So the best thing to do is really create yourself the parameters, like be very strict with what times you give yourself to close, to go take your break, to go take your lunch, because you can be in front of the laptop the entire time and then like the day goes by and it's over. And it doesn't feel like it's over because then it starts over real quickly the next day. So create your boundaries. Hopefully, be very, very strict with your boundaries with your family members as well as with your work, family as well. Give everyone boundaries and let them know where you are at your best. Also learn, something that I learned myself is learn when you are at your best and your worst, and be real with yourself. Like part of empathizing that I've learned, there's a practice of it's called compassionate empathy, is being empathetic with you and saying, I'm not at my best. Like, I'll be real. I'm not at my best after 2 o'clock. I shut down. Like, doesn't matter if I take coffee, I'm dying by 2 o'clock. And so I know that about myself. So I'm not going to put a very strategic meeting at 2 o'clock for myself because I know I'm not at my best. I'm not thinking, I'm not my sharpest. I'm tired. I get a second wing around 3:30 and then I can go for another, 4 hours. But you learn yourself. You learn your ways. You learn who you are, how you are. And then you drive your work to match that energy level so that you could be at your best. I think that's a great hack because a lot of us are running dry a lot on energy lately. So.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And did you, Miri, have to find new ways to balance work and family and being a mom during these times? Absolutely. I found myself in the first few days not balancing anything at all. So I was working 15-hour days. I wasn't eating. My husband had to literally walk in with food and bring it to me while I was in the meetings. It was very chaotic. And then it was really for me. As I said, I was on a leave for my mom. I came back to chaos again. And so, I came back with a fresh perspective of what is important. During COVID, I think a lot of us have had that reflection. A lot of lives are being lost. And what does that mean when you have the possibility of losing someone you love? That loss, what does it mean? What is important to you in life? So yeah, the balancing has been more important to me now. Again, creating those boundaries, setting myself literally blocking my calendar to say, this is my lunchtime. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to eat with my family and we're going to say hi to each other and talk about the day. Dinner time is the same as sacred. So I block the times, and it's really important for me to make sure that nobody touches that time in my calendar. Yeah. So yeah, that's beautiful. Absolutely. And I can also imagine, just like you said about your road trip together with your family, I'm sure the time you had together in the car, driving to your mom, also brought you as a family closer together, and you really had time to bond with each other. And yeah, I asked my boss to write a journal. I told him we were never probably going to have this opportunity again in life. It was really interesting because while we drove, there was not a lot of cars on the road, right? There was a lot of people were just home. So we were basically alone in a lot of the road. And we took the Pacific Highway, route from Seattle all the way down to San Francisco, which is one of the best highways you will ever take. Very picturesque. We took Route 66 as well in Arizona. Some very, very cool things that we saw. And it was a moment of just looking at just the change in environment. We went from Seattle in the climate all the way down to Arizona in the desert. Great moments, great family moments, and that's the simplicity of life. We did nothing big. We've taken vacations when we go to Disney and we go to France and we go to Prague. And this is as simple as it gets. Get in the car, take some snacks, and watch the road and listen to some songs and tell stories. And it was definitely most powerful.
So I think that's a perfect way to get into the next topic that I'm personally very excited about, is you telling your story and sharing all with us how we can brand ourselves, what that means. And I have to tell you, Miri, I don't like to read. I do not enjoy it. And I loved this book. I loved your book. It took me a long time. It took me a while because with 2 kids and focus, it was a lot to get through, but it was something that I wanted to support you as a friend of mine, but then to share your story with others in the way that you did. I literally felt like I was sitting there having coffee with you. You have such an eloquent way of writing this book where it felt like you were talking to a friend and yet sharing ways where we can all learn how to build and brand and tell our story. So one, thank you for writing this and sharing it with all of us. But I would like to know, what is the backstory? What made you decide to write this book?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for supporting, and thank you so much for reading. It's like, I think like writing a book is like having a kid. You just, once you have it out there, you're like, okay, it's out there. I don't know if anybody would like it, but it's out there, So it's like, I had a lot of insecurities once the book came out. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if people are gonna just like throw jars of mayonnaise or something at me, be like, nope. Not good. So thank you. Backstory is, I actually was not planning on writing a book ever. It was not a goal. It was not a thing. I was in London giving a speech about storytelling. When I started this job of storytelling at Microsoft in core services engineering, everybody all of a sudden began to get very curious about the work that we were doing there. So they started asking me at Microsoft, come give a session, come talk about this. And then it just spread outside of Microsoft. And now I'm like traveling all over the world, sharing these insights. And then the commissioner for the publisher, Kogan Page, came out and said, hey, Miri, I think this needs to be a book. And I was like, thanks, but no, I'm getting back on my plane now. And she pressed.
She's
like, oh, this really needs to be a book. And I was like, I don't know how to turn a 20-minute, presentation into a book. Like, that will never happen. I'm like, I don't have the time. My mom's not well. So that was actually when she first started getting not well. And so I was like, there's too much going on. Sorry, I'm not doing this. And I think what made me do it was she believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I think that is so powerful as sisters, as people. There was a woman, right? It was a woman who came to me and said, you need to do this. I know you have to do this. She submitted my proposal for me. I don't know if that's even legal to say right now, but she did. And she just believed. And I was like, wow, if someone believes this much in me, then I owe it to her to do this and believe in myself. And I think that's so powerful when we do that with each other, especially as sisters, as women in tech. So I could say that it was someone else who believed in me, in my work, that really landed it. And I felt like I owed it to her to give that content out there and get it out there.
Well, I have to say the chapter where you talked about your mom being your hero, I'm gonna cry. It was beautiful. It was, I got goosebumps. I hearted, I underlined. It was just it was so endearing, and it shows how, with, like you said, with women in tech, like Izzy and I, we've never actually met in person, and we're constantly supporting each other. And so to see the power behind the way that you can bring others along with you, kind of like how you continuously highlighted different people throughout the book. Yeah. I think that's beautiful. And Izzy, you had a really good question that we wanted to ask Miri about the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So the part which I also loved about your book is how you bring up the importance of storytelling. So also, like you said, research confirms that stories can be up to 20 times more memorable than other type of information. So as women in tech, and you're a lot on stage, we have many of our friends and viewers of Head in the Cloud, Heart in the Community, who are active on stage or who are looking into starting a presenting career. And I would love to hear from you, like, what tips do you have about giving such a presentation and specifically storytelling?
Yeah, specifically for people who, well, first I'll say this, for the community that you have, this audience that's listening, we know and they know very well that storytelling and public speaking are one of the 2 top soft skills that we'll have to hone in for the next few years to come. We are seeing even an acceleration of that during COVID, the ability for you to get in front of a camera, capture an audience, get them to stop scrolling real quick and listen to you, borrow their time, as busy as they are. It's an art, it's a science. There is a science to storytelling. In fact, you mentioned one of those data points, and that it is 22 times more memorable than any piece piece of information you will ever share if you share it in story form. What that means is that dopamine, cortisol, endorphins, oxytocins are waking up the minute you say once upon a time. In your brain, it's this, all of it just kind of lights up and goes, somebody's going to tell me a story and it might be about me and I need to tune in. And that's what storytelling does. So tips to doing this the best way. Number one, storytelling should be emotional. Ask yourself, what emotions am I seeking from my audience? People will not remember what you said. They won't remember what you did. They'll remember how you made them feel. So they'll walk away from that. When you walk away from that stage, you'll go, oh, I got inspired. Oh, I got happy. Oh, I got all these hormones happening. I love this person because they made me feel all these things. So ask yourself, what do I want to evoke from my audience when I walk away from them in story form? Number two, make sure that it's a story form by having a character, a plot, and a conclusion. If it doesn't have those three basic elements, it's not considered a story. So you can talk about data, you can talk about math, you can talk about everything. If it's done with the context of a character, plot, and conclusion, it'll capture your audience and it'll be emotional because you're asking, how do I want to evoke their emotion? What emotions do I want to evoke? And lastly, make sure one of those characters, it's them. The audience needs to see themselves. So you remember, if you remember a story, if you remember a poetry, if you remember, a movie, it's because there was something there that captured you as a person. You saw a little bit of yourself in that character, whether it's in the main character or the evil character or the antagonist, doesn't even matter. You saw yourself somewhere in that narrative, and that's the magic of story. That's why we tune in. So ask your audience when you, as a speaker, where do they see themselves in the story? If I'm talking too much about myself, if I'm talking too much about my product and they don't see themselves, I've lost them. And now I'm trying to sell them something, I've lost them. So keep them engaged in the way that they go, oh, where am I going in the story? Where are they taking me? Oh, I'm here. Oh, I see myself here. And it's consistent. We're foreshadowing the story over and over the narrative until the end. We're able to capture them.
Beautiful.
And, I think that the one thing that was really important to me in reading this, and especially now in the environment we're in with COVID, where we're all disconnected and disjointed, and you and I have talked about this, Miri, but it was that one word, empathy, and it was also about being authentic. And I think that we all need to show up more authentic right now because we don't have that touch. Like, I don't know if that captured you because you can be doing a million things. We're all virtual, but to show up every day and be my authentic self will capture the audience or that human that I want to engage with. And then I think that piece of giving each other a little bit of grace right now, having that piece of empathy, because we're all dealing with something so different right now, whether it be at work, personal, professional. And I love that part of your book. It was resounding from end to end, whether it be what you were sharing with us or all of the interviews that you closed the book with. And it just, it reminded me to give each other a little bit of grace, show up a bit more, empathetic. And I would love to know from you, what gave you the bright idea to close the book out with all of these interviews? I just thought that was so cool, and I've never seen that before.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, back to my commissioner, we were talking about the chapters. I had not, again, it was so hard for me to envision an entire book. It's a weird, since I never thought about it, I was like, I don't know how this is going to play out in terms of chapters. So she helped me kind of drive the chapters. That we had not thought about the titles yet. But we were thinking about content. And so she said, we want to leave them inspired because the last chapter, we wanted it to be future. We wanted it to be techie. Yeah. We wanted people to think about, the robo-apocalypse that's coming with the machines being here. But we also wanted to leave them not just scared, but inspired. And so we talked about the idea of several interviews from different levels and industries within storytelling. And what I didn't know, asking the questions, because they're very open in the questions in the book, is that it would drive a theme, like you said. It would close out the book in such a beautiful way of resonating once again the ideas of empathy and authenticity. I did not know what to expect. They were open-ended questions, so I was going to put exactly what they gave me, and there was no guidance to their answers. In this book. So I just said, here's the question, and let's have the flow. And as you saw, it was really just kind of mandated, almost divinely created, that the empathy and that authenticity are the theme of storytelling.
Well, what I'll say for anybody that is listening to this podcast, if you haven't gotten the brand storytelling book yet, I would highly encourage you to do it. It was an amazing read. And before we switch topics, Izzy, you saw something really cool on Twitter about our friend Miri. Do we want to talk about that?
Well, I see a lot on Twitter about Miri, which is fantastic, of course, and also Miri as a woman in tech, inspiring many of us. I see you actually also have an upcoming virtual Women in Tech conference coming up and other activities. What's happening with Miri after we finish this show? What do you have coming up?
Oh, man. So I'll tell you a little bit about this conference. So this Women Future Conference is actually hosted by the Stevie Awards, which is a business award for women. They do different different awards for business people, but they have a specific one for women, which I think is really cool. So women that do business, women that own businesses, they really want to highlight powerful women. I don't typically pitch to speak at conferences. Typically, they'll come to me and ask me. My calendar is super busy, so I only do 1 or 2 per month if that's available, and definitely none during the summer, which is more, the working months for me here with the internships. But I did pitch for this one because I really wanted my voice to be part of this lineup of very powerful women that have these very strong voices. And when I got the email that I got selected, I was told that there were over 500 applications. And only I think it was 50 that got selected. So I'm very excited. So what's next for me is to continue amplifying my voice. That has been, for me, probably the most challenging thing and the most rewarding at the same time. Having a voice means you're fighting consistently the systems. You're fighting the people who don't want you to have a voice, which is a whole lot of people. You're fighting legacy. You're fighting, all these things. It's not when it's cool. It's never cool to have a voice, especially if you're a Latina woman in tech. So it's been challenging, but also very rewarding, because then I get those emails all the time from these women saying, Miri, thank you so much. Thank you for speaking on my behalf. You represented me. And that's what elates me. That's what makes me keep going, right? So I will never stop until I die. I will continue to share my voice and talk about the struggles, because they're real. I don't pretend that the job is always, glamorous. It isn't. It comes with very hardships and challenges, and that's okay. That's part of the process. That's part of what we're doing. We're doing beyond. Being a woman in tech is doing beyond the job. We do way more than that. So what's next is these conferences where I'm going to pitch to get to the next level of visibility, so that more women can have that visibility and that platform. Yeah, that's really amazing. Thank you. Also on behalf of all women and underrepresented communities for doing that. So as you say, it's like something ongoing, and you will keep doing it until you die. So speaking of ongoing, just to go back about your book, was there a moment where you felt like, okay, now the book is done? Or do you still now, after the book is published, feel like, I want to add this, and I want to keep on writing this, and do the ideas keep coming, or you really feel it's done? I was like, it's done. I don't have an ounce left in me to write. And you know what I felt? I felt that the next step, it's going to be more about my story. I didn't realize how deep my book was going to get, and I didn't think it was going to be about me. I know I share stories, but that wasn't how I envisioned it. It was going to be a business book. It's to very smart audiences. Why would they be interested in my stories? I didn't know how to do it, but I knew I had to share the stories to practically showcase how storytelling is done. So when I chose the stories, then I surprised myself to see, wow, this is getting deep. I have moments of reflection. There's a story about a friend that I had. That's a real story that happened to me. She was a backstabber. I call her Backstabbing Angela. That's not her real name. But I went back there, and I was like, why did I go back there in my mind? That must have been traumatizing for me. So it's a very self-reflective mode, and I stayed there. I have stayed reflecting since. And so I think there's opportunity, once again, back to that voice platform, to share, because the more we authentically share our stories, the more people recognize how human we are, how flawed we are, that we're not perfect, and it's okay. It's okay to not be okay sometimes. It's okay to fail, and if anything, just to show more humanity, so that other people can have compassion, and we can practice that compassion with one another.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's one thing. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Izzy.
Yeah. I think I was going to say exactly the one thing you were going to say, that if there's one thing that's positive, in this whole situation, is indeed how more at least what I feel, how more human people around me got, like also on Twitter and friends in the community, etc. That indeed it's okay to not feel okay. We are all going through the same struggles and worries and different worries, of course, as well. So yeah, indeed, I also fully agree on that, Miri.
But what I was going to say is I appreciate you, Miri, because you have kept it real. And I think that we forget the backstory, but in going through this journey with you, the little bit that I've been able to, which I'm thankful for, is you've broken down, you've cried, you've said, you know, I've had a hard day, or I question my ability as a mom or a wife or as a woman in tech. And I think that when we see all these things on Twitter or LinkedIn, or like, oh, Miri's doing all these things, but you do keep it real, and you do remind us that it is a lot of hard work. Writing this book was a monstrosity for you to do, and you gave your all, you gave your emotion, and you know, you've been really real about that. And I think that, especially like we've talked about, being that authentic person and keeping it real and knowing that you're going to have good and bad days, and even when you're seeing something on social, there's a lot behind that post.
Yeah. And we had to reschedule this meeting, this recording, because there was a day that I was just like, sorry, not feeling it. I'm just not having a good day. And that's it. I'm not going to get on board and pretend. I don't do that. I think people can pick up on that in an authentic vibe. If I show up and smile, but I'm not really smiling with my eyes. So I think that's all part of it. It's being authentic is a hard challenge, but once we practice it more and more, we allow ourselves that humanity. We allow ourselves to fail fast. We allow ourselves to be less than perfect, and that's okay. And there's a freedom in that. There's a freedom in that I appreciate very much.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all the realness, all of the genuine advice, and the gift that you've given to all of us through, your speeches and your book, and actually thank your family, because they've sacrificed a lot so that you could do this, and you've got such a supportive family. But I think that, tell them all thank you, because really a huge gift.
Yeah. Speaking of family, Miri, so you're now in Florida finally with your mom.
Yes.
What's the one thing that makes you most happy to have your mom there right now? Is it her cake? Is it a special dish?
It is. So my mom, a lot of people don't know, I don't really speak about her much in who she is, because she's not well, but she at her best. So she's a PhD in psychology. She's a pastor of a church that she founded, and she's a great storyteller. I mean, she just tells the best stories. So I was every time I'm with her, I can expect a good story that I just listen to her. I get to talk a lot in my job and in the things that I do. So just listening, it's such a beautiful process for me. I can spend hours listening to her stories. They're very captivating. She's very animated. So if you think I'm loud and animated, she's like 10 times. She's my guru. She taught me a lot. So she's fun. She's fun to hear her stories. Now she's repeating them more. She's telling more of the same stories, but I don't mind it. I hear them over and over, and I love her voice. Her voice just resonates in my heart. Very sweet voice she has, and so those moments that's it. It's just doing nothing but listening to her. I grab a glass of water and I drink my water, and she goes on with stories.
That's just beautiful. Well, thank you so much for making the time to be on the show today. I mean, we all know you have a super busy schedule, very active in the community. And yeah, so we're super thankful to have you on the show. And I truly hope you enjoy the moments with your family and with your mom. And with that, I would like to hand over to Holly to also say goodbye.
Yes, thank you, Miri. Enjoy your time in Florida. Thank you for everything that you've given to us through the book, through your advice, and just being such a good friend and taking the time to join us today and share your story with more. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the work that both of you are doing with a head in the clouds, a heart in the community. That is so powerful. It's both tech, it's both heart. They come together, and we're talking more and more about that marriage of head and the heart. So good job. Keep doing it. Keep raising your voices, and keep giving people a platform to share more. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Miri.
Testing. La, la, la.
Okay,
Getting in the mood. We have Miri on the show.
All right, let me stop it.